What if the truths we take for granted are not as solid as they seem? Throughout history, philosophers have loved paradoxes, puzzling scenarios or statements that defy our common sense. By definition, a paradox is something that appears to lead to contradictory or impossible outcomes, flying in the face of what we intuitively expect. In this video, we'll explore 7 mind-bending paradoxes that will challenge how you see reality. Each of these paradoxes packs a conceptual punch strong enough to shake up your worldview. From ancient riddles about identity to cosmic mysteries about alien life, prepare to have your thinking turned on its head. Let's dive in. But be warned, nothing is as it seems. Our first paradox is a classic from ancient Greece, the Ship of Theseus. Imagine a famous ship from mythology, kept in a harbor as a museum piece. Over the years, each wooden plank of the ship decays and is replaced with a new one, until eventually no original part is left. Now here's the mind twister. Is it still the same Ship of Theseus, or has it become a different ship entirely? At what point did it stop being the real ship, after half the planks were changed? 90%? Or does it remain Theseus's ship all the way through because its story and form continued uninterrupted? To push the puzzle even further, philosophers like Thomas Hobbes added a wicked twist. Suppose someone saved all those old, removed planks and used them to rebuild the original ship. Now there are 2 ships, one made of all new wood and one made of all the old materials. So which one is the true Ship of Theseus? This seemingly simple question cuts to the heart of identity over time. It asks how something or even someone can remain the same when all its components have changed. The Ship of Theseus paradox doesn't just apply to planks on a boat. It can make you wonder about yourself. Our bodies and minds change gradually over the years. Cells renew, memories fade, personalities shift. After enough change, are you still the same person you once were? This ancient thought experiment has been debated for millennia, and it beautifully demonstrates how a straightforward question can reveal something profoundly puzzling about reality. Our next paradox tackles the slippery boundary between something and nothing. It's called the Fermi Paradox, or more plainly, the paradox of the heap. Picture a pile of sand, a heap. If you remove 1 grain of sand from it, you still have a heap, right? Take away another grain, it's reasonable to say it's still a heap. But if you keep removing grains one by one, eventually you'll be down to just a few grains, then 2 grains, then a single grain. A single grain of sand is certainly not a heap. Somewhere along the way, the heap disappeared. But when? Was it at 100,000 grains? 10,000? 100? Or did that very last grain magically turn a heap into not a heap? This is the Fermi Paradox, Fermi coming from the Greek word for heap, and it exposes a troubling fuzziness in our language and concepts. The same logic applies to many things in life. Consider hair and baldness. Lose 1 hair from a full head, you're not bald. Lose another and another. You wouldn't call yourself bald until suddenly you are. But where is that line? Or think about wealth. Is there a precise dollar at which someone becomes rich? The Fermi Paradox highlights how vague terms, heap, tall, rich, bald, etc., have no clear boundary. Each tiny change seems insignificant, yet eventually those changes add up to something completely different. It's a reminder that much of how we understand the world, through words and categories, is inherently fuzzy. Push those definitions too hard, and they crumble into paradox. This one may not have a satisfying answer, but it certainly makes us question how we draw lines in our mental sand. Now for a short paradox that packs an infinite punch. It's called the liar paradox, and it's basically one simple, maddening sentence. This sentence is false. At first glance, it looks like a harmless statement, but try to analyze it, and you get stuck in a loop forever. Here's why. If the sentence, "This sentence is false," is telling the truth, then what it says must be the case. The sentence is false. But wait, if it's false, that contradicts our assumption that it was true. Okay, so maybe the sentence is actually false. But if "this sentence is false" is a false statement, that would mean the sentence is not false, meaning it's true. Yet if it's true, it claims it's false. You can see the vicious cycle. True implies false, and false implies true, with no way out. This perplexing little sentence is more than a party trick for logicians. It reveals a crack in the very idea of truth. The liar paradox shows that our normal logic can tangle itself up when a statement talks about itself. It's like linguistic Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. No matter how you decide, you end up in a contradiction. Philosophers have debated for over 2,000 years how to resolve this, from declaring the sentence meaningless to developing new logical systems. But one thing's for sure. This paradox will make you question the simplicity of true or false in a whole new way. Let's turn to a paradox that touches on theology and the limits of power. It's often framed in a classic question. Can an all-powerful being create a stone so heavy that even they cannot lift it? This is the omnipotence paradox. On the face of it, it asks a simple yes or no question about a hypothetical all-powerful being. Let's say, God for simplicity. But either answer traps you in a contradiction. Think it through. If God can create a rock so massive that he cannot lift it, then there's something he cannot do. Namely, lift that rock. That means he wouldn't be truly all-powerful, right? On the other hand, if God cannot create such a rock, then there's something he can't create, which also means his power is limited. In either case, it seems an omnipotent being would end up not omnipotent. Catch 22. We've logically proven that omnipotence, defined as unlimited power, leads to an impossible situation. The dilemma plays out visually. Either the rock defeats the divine power, or the divine power prevents the rock. No true balance is possible. This paradox isn't just a trick question. It forces us to think carefully about what all-powerful can even mean. Some argue that true omnipotence shouldn't include doing the logically impossible, like creating square circles or rocks too heavy to lift. Others propose redefinitions. Maybe omnipotence covers all logically possible actions, while nonsense tasks don't count. Still, the omnipotence paradox remains a powerful philosophical challenge, probing the interplay between power and logic. Let's jump into the past for a classic time travel puzzle, the grandfather paradox. Imagine you had a time machine and visited your grandfather before he ever met your grandmother. Now suppose you somehow prevent that meeting, or in the darkest version, you eliminate your grandfather entirely. If he never has children, your parent is never born. And if your parent is never born, you never exist. But if you never exist, who went back in time in the first place? This paradox highlights a fundamental problem with coherent time travel. It creates a logical contradiction in the fabric of reality. Cause and effect get completely tangled. By going back and altering the past, you erase the very reason you could exist to alter it. It's like pulling out the thread of a sweater that you're currently wearing. Reality unravels paradoxically. The grandfather paradox doesn't have a resolution in a single timeline universe. It basically suggests that traveling back in time to change things is impossible, or at least not in the straightforward way we imagine in movies. Some speculative solutions include the idea of branching alternate universes. You create a new timeline where you now never existed, but your original timeline remains intact, or self-consistency principles. Something always prevents the paradox. The universe won't let you do the deed. Either way, it's a wild ride for the imagination. This paradox has inspired countless science fiction stories and headaches alike. It reminds us that time and causality might be far stranger and less forgiving than our linear intuitions suggest. Let's slow things down, infinitely slow. Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise challenges our understanding of motion and infinity. The idea is simple. Achilles, the fastest Greek hero, races a slow tortoise. To be fair, he gives the tortoise a head start. Achilles sprints forward, but every time he reaches the point where the tortoise has already moved a little ahead. Achilles keeps catching up, yet there's always a tiny distance left, because the space between them can be divided into infinitely many smaller steps. According to this logic, he never truly overtakes the tortoise. Of course, in the real world, Achilles blows past the tortoise rather quickly. We know that intuitively and we can measure it. So what gives? Zeno's paradox is pointing out a quirk in how we think of infinite division. It seems logically impossible for Achilles to overtake if space and time can be divided without end, since there are infinite half-distances. Achilles must run through. How can he ever finish crossing them all? The resolution, with the tools of modern mathematics, is that those infinitely many little distances sum up to a finite distance. Achilles can traverse them in finite time. But in Zeno's era, this was genuinely confounding. The Achilles paradox is more than a quaint story. It reveals the mystery of infinity hidden in everyday life. It forced philosophers to distinguish between the mathematical concept of infinity and physical reality. In a way, it's reassuring. Even something as solid as motion can harbor an apparent contradiction. Achilles does overtake the tortoise, but Zeno's argument shows that sometimes our straightforward logic needs careful tuning when infinity is involved. It's a reminder that the world can work in spite of paradoxical appearances, and that our understanding of time, space, and motion is subtle and wondrous. For our final paradox, let's zoom out to the grandest scale, the entire universe. On a starry night, gazing up, have you ever wondered, are we alone out here? Given the mind-boggling number of stars and planets, it feels like there should be others. In fact, by the numbers, there should be many alien civilizations out there. Our galaxy alone has hundreds of billions of stars, and the observable universe holds hundreds of billions of galaxies. Even if only a tiny fraction of stars have planets, and a tiny fraction of those planets develop life, and an even tinier fraction intelligent life, you still end up with a huge number. With so many chances for extraterrestrial intelligence to arise, it's reasonable to expect we are not special. We ought to see some signs, radio signals, alien probes, something. And yet, silence. This sharp contrast between high probability and zero evidence is called the Fermi Paradox. Physicist Enrico Fermi summed it up perfectly. Where is everybody? If the universe is full of planets and chances for life, why haven't we detected a single sign of another civilization? No signals, no probes, nothing. There are many unsettling explanations. Maybe life is incredibly rare and we're truly alone. Maybe intelligent species tend to wipe themselves out before they can explore the stars, the so-called Great Filter. Perhaps advanced civilizations are avoiding us on purpose, like in the zoo hypothesis, or they communicate in ways we simply can't detect. None of these answers are comforting. Either the cosmos is empty, or there's a reason for the silence. The Fermi Paradox doesn't yet have an answer, but it succeeds in shattering our assumptions. It forces us to confront the possibility that our common-sense expectations, lots of stars mean lots of aliens, might be dead wrong. It's a paradox that sits at the intersection of science and philosophy, raising questions about life, civilization, and our place in the universe. As we strain our ears for a whisper from the stars, the Fermi Paradox reminds us that sometimes a lack of evidence can be just as profound as evidence itself. In the face of the great silence, we're left pondering whether the night sky is empty or full of truths we're not yet ready to see. Paradoxes are more than just riddles or jokes. They are profound reality checks for the mind. Each of the 7 paradoxes we explored takes something we thought we understood and shows us a contradiction or mystery lurking inside it. They unsettle us, but in a healthy way. By shaking the foundations of our worldview, paradoxes invite us to rebuild our understanding on more thoughtful terms. Our journey through these puzzles, from identity and language to time, infinity, and the cosmos, reveals a common thread. Questioning our assumptions is essential. Real life is full of uncertainties and gray areas, much like a heap that becomes non-heap, or a truth that becomes a lie. Sometimes it takes a paradox to illuminate the paradoxical nature of reality itself. If your head is spinning a bit, that's okay. It means you've been thinking. Let these paradoxes challenge you and spark conversations. After all, embracing the questions we can't easily answer keeps our sense of wonder alive. Even when answers are elusive, the pursuit of understanding is its own reward. Which paradox shook your worldview the most? Keep asking questions and stay curious. The world is far stranger and more fascinating than it first appears.